Are you familiar with how a monkey trap works? A monkey trap works like this. You take a vessel of some kind, so like I don't know, some kind of vessel. You put a hole in it that's just big enough for the monkey to put their hand in like this, and then they grab the treat inside and they can't pull their fist back out without letting go of the treat. Then they can be free. Speaking of real estate, this is becoming a problem. I don't know if you know what a liquidity problem is, but a liquidity problem is when you buy, basically, whenever you hear, usually on CNBC and other, these propaganda organizations, when they talk about a liquidity problem, what that means is that people paid too much for the underlying asset, and it doesn't make any difference what the asset is, whether it's real estate, a stock, it doesn't matter. Any asset that you buy at the top or at the peak of that market, and then there's all of a sudden there's nobody above you to pay more for it, except for maybe BlackRock or the government or something like that. You have a liquidity problem. Okay, that's all that means, is that you bought at the top of something and now there isn't any way to get out without you letting go of all that fake profit. The problem is what if you've borrowed against all of that future possible profit? Yeah, so now you have a real problem. You have a real problem now if you borrowed against all of that. So in other words, if you bought an asset, let's say, and you told the bank, hey, it's worth $1 billion, let's say. And then the bank says, oh, wow, we agree. We think it's worth $1 billion too. We're amazing. Let's go ahead and loan you $500 million so you can pretend to be a half a billionaire, right? Even though if you were to try and sell that asset on the open market, you might only get maybe $50 million for it. I mean, like on a good day. I mean, it's in some cases much of this stuff isn't really even worth that. I don't know that you could even give me a building downtown anymore. You probably have to pay me to take it, because the cost to convert those buildings from office buildings that nobody goes to anymore into something livable is way beyond what it's even worth to do it. There was a guy on TikTok who broke that down. He broke down all the costs, and it's like, yeah, dude, it's not really worth it to do that. Unless people want to move there for the prestige of it all, but it's like, how many people have that kind of money? And then of course, on top of that, you still have to maintain a building. You still have to maintain that stuff. You can have any civilization you want if you're willing to maintain it. You still have to maintain all that stuff. Okay. So that's your liquidity problem there. This goes into another topic called an overheated economy. What's an overheated economy? You hear that periodically. Guys will say that on CNBC and again other propaganda outlets, CNN, Fox, etc. They'll say something like, overheated economy. What that means is poor people have paid off too much debt, or they're not taking on enough debt. In other words, poor people have become smarter, and they're saying, hold on, I don't want to gamble anymore. I just want to earn money and pay all this stuff off. I want to be in the fuck you position, right? The John Good, we all know the John Goodman, you get up $2.5 million, every asshole in the world knows what to do. You buy a house with a 25-year roof, an indestructible Jap economy shitbox, you put the rest in the system to 3.5%, and that's your base. That's your fuck you position, right? And we've all seen, I butchered the lines, but you get the idea. Yeah, that's called an overheated economy to them. Because, see, the economy is fueled by debt. It's fueled by debt, garbage, paper nonsense, digital nonsense called the US dollar, and other currencies, by the way. That's not just the USD. That's also the Chinese yuan. That's the rupee. That's the yen. That's all of them. The ruble. It doesn't make any difference what it is. The peso. They are all fueled by the exact same nonsense. Debt. Debt upon debt upon debt upon debt. And the people who borrow the least amount of that currency makes that currency worth less. It sounds counterintuitive, but it's really not when you understand that most of this stuff is, again, it's fueled by promises to pay sometime in the future. Well, who's promising this? Well, the bankers and the politicians are promising for you. That's why you're going broke faster than you've ever gone. That's why you're working harder than you've ever worked, and you're going backward faster than you've ever gone. That's why that's happening. They're trying to prop this all up with just endless liquidity, meaning more debt. Because remember, in order for a dollar to be conjured into existence, somebody has to first be willing to borrow a dollar at interest. Okay, that's exactly how this works. So yeah, so when the Fed says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and inject a bunch of money, they're not doing that for free. Okay, a liquidity injection of billions of dollars to prop up the stock market, they're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. Okay, they want a return on that. Okay. The people who own all of that, they want a return. Now, where does that return come from? Well, it comes from lots of different things. Farmland, houses, all the stuff that basically all the people need, right? All the plebs out here that are working and doing all the work. I saw a tweet. It was so brilliant, so succinct. It put it nicely. It said, everybody's making money except the people who are actually working. Any of the people who are working, they're not making any money. But any people who aren't working, my God, they're making all kinds of money. Yeah. That can only go on for so long. And we are kind of nearing that. And, well, we were nearing that about 2.5 years ago. And I tried to tell people, hey, be cautious here, because you're about to get yourself into a monkey trap where you can't get out. You're trying to hold on to profits. Which is more important, your profits or your life? Yeah. Dude, there's scenes in movies. I can't remember what it was. I think there was like The Mummy or something like that, where the guy goes back in to steal a bunch of gold and gets trapped in there. There's all kind. Art is full of that. Movies are full of characters like that are consumed with their greed, and their greed unwinds them. It destroys them. Scorsese's done like 3 or 4 movies like that. Okay, right? I mean, it's Scorsese movies are like. Like we're all familiar with Horatio Alger stories, where it's like the guy who starts with nothing and then builds a huge empire, right? We love those stories. We forget that there is an opposite side. It's the guy who starts with everything and then loses it all. We forget those stories. We don't like those stories. Those are cautionary stories. Those are the ones that are trying to tell people something like, hey, yeah, just keep in mind, what are you going after? What's the reason behind it? Why? Not to get all Merovingian about this, but I mean, like, why, right? So anyway, that's what a liquidity trap is, and that's what's happening here. So in real estate, when you're seeing this, because I see this is like heavily in the news right now, it's all over my timeline now, at least, of the, like new home sales are not selling and prices are stagnant. And like, yeah, it's because everybody's holding on to the illusion of profit, as opposed to saying, okay, hold on, dude, I gotta get away from this. I gotta bring my stress level down. I gotta get away from all this madness. Do with this information whatever you want.